So let's continue on with the human body lesson from yesterday. Everyone touch your skin. Kaylee, is skin an organ?
Yes.
What does it do?
It protects all the major organs in the body.
Kendra, what is another organ in the body?
From the video yesterday, the heart was an organ.
What does it do?
Oh, it pumps blood through the body.
Awesome. Kaylee, what's another organ in the human body and what does it do?
The lungs, they pop in,
Continue.
they pump in, or they breathe in the air and expel the carbon dioxide.
Awesome job. So now we're going to watch a video about it, and that's just going to kind of wrap up a lesson on the human body. It's going to summarize everything. So go ahead and let's play the video.
Go ahead. What is the cardiovascular system? The cardiovascular system includes the heart and the blood vessels.
Don't take this the wrong way, but you're pretty replaceable. When it comes to your body, science has figured out how to hack, synthesize, or replace a surprising amount of its parts and processes. We have implants to keep heartbeats steady and steel rods to mimic bones. We've got drugs that can replace hormones and antibiotics to cover for your immune system. And pretty soon you'll be able to just 3D print a new ear if you need one, really. But one thing we absolutely cannot manufacture, despite what True Blood would have you believe, is blood. And yet blood is a thing that we all need. And sometimes, because of injury or illness, we need extra blood. In fact, every 2 seconds, someone in the US needs a blood transfusion. This could be a victim of a car accident, someone undergoing surgery, or a cancer patient who needs new blood to maintain their health during chemotherapy. And because we can't grow it on trees or make it in a lab or even store it for all that long, the blood that people need, nearly 16 million pints a year in the US, has to come from people who have donated it. So, let's talk blood, shall we? The meal of choice for vampires and female mosquitoes, blood is red, sticky, salty, and kinda metallic tasting. It is indeed thicker than water and super viscous, which is why Hitchcock used chocolate syrup as a stand-in in a certain classic shower scene. For most purposes, blood comes in 8 different types, and it accounts for about 8% of your body weight. You might remember from our episodes on tissues that blood is a type of connective tissue, which means it's made of living cells suspended in a non-living matrix, which in this case is the fluid ground substance called plasma. And of course, one of blood's main missions is to transport and distribute oxygen and nutrients and waste products and hormones around the body. But it also helps maintain and regulate body temperature, pH levels, and the volume of fluids in your body. Plus, it protects you from infection and from the loss of blood itself. Perhaps second only to your brain, your blood is the one component of your body that we haven't figured out how to reproduce, synthesize, or imitate. It's a part of you that is literally irreplaceable. It's Saturday and you feel like doing a good deed, so you head over to your local Red Cross for a blood drive. You get your finger pricked and then somebody directs you toward a lounge chair, swabs your inner elbow with alcohol, and then comes at you with a hollow needle. Once the bag is full, they usually take about a pint, you get unhooked and grab a cookie and a juice to replace the blood sugar you lost, and the whole process takes around 20 minutes. But for your blood, the day is just beginning. Soon it will be taken to a lab where it'll be tested for infectious diseases and separated into different parts before heading out to hospitals. So hold up. What exactly do I mean by different parts? Well, the blood that flows from your arm into that bag is whole blood, a mixture of cells and cell fragments called formed elements along with water and lots of dissolved molecules. A patient who needs a transfusion may only need some of those things and not others, so the parts are separated. Once your blood makes it to a lab, technicians put it in a centrifuge which spins it around fast enough to send the heavier components to the bottom of the tubes and bring the less dense elements to the top. In the centrifuge, 3 distinct layers emerge. Down at the bottom, you got a heavy red layer of erythrocytes, or red blood cells that carry oxygen and carbon dioxide. They make up about 45% of your total blood volume. Then you got this thin little whitish layer in the middle. Those are your warriors, the leukocytes, or white blood cells that defend your body from toxins and foreign microbes. And there are also the cell fragments called platelets, which help with blood clotting and make up less than 1% of your blood. Finally, up at the top, you see the yellowish plasma, which accounts for about 55% of your blood volume. Plasma is actually 90% water water, but the other 10% is chock full of 100 different solutes, including proteins, electrolytes, gases, hormones, and waste products. The most abundant of these solutes are electrolytes, which you may have heard of as the secret ingredient in sports drinks, but they're really just positively charged cations like calcium, sodium, and potassium, and negatively charged anions like phosphate, sulfate, and bicarbonate. Together, these ions help regulate your blood's chemistry, maintaining its pH levels and proper osmotic pressure, and allowing other tissues to do their jobs, like making muscles contract and sending action potentials. But when measured by weight, the bulk of the solutes in your blood are really the plasma proteins. Most of these proteins, like albumin and alpha and beta globulins, are made by the liver and do things like balance the osmotic pressure between the blood and surrounding tissues and transport lipids and ions. Others run defense for you, like the gamma globulin antibodies that are released by plasma cells during an immune response, or fibrinogen proteins, which are vital to forming blood clots and stopping bleeding. Alright, bleeding. I want to talk about that. Because for the very reason that I mentioned at the beginning, that we can't replace your blood with some synthetic wonder fluid, the last thing that your circulatory system wants is for you to fritter away your blood in some sidewalk scrape or kitchen accident. So it has a whole system in place to prevent you from losing too much of it through a process known as hemostasis. So imagine you're slicing up a nice garlic cheese bagel one morning and you lacerate the distal phalanx of your pollex. In other words, you cut the tip of your thumb. And now you're bleeding all over your breakfast. At the very first sign of rupture, the blood vessel actually constricts itself to slow the flow of blood through it. Then little cell fragments called platelets gather at the site of the injury, creating a plug that dams the breach and keeps the blood from leaking further. Now, these free-floating platelets don't clump together during regular circulation, that would be terrible, but when the endothelial cells lining a blood vessel wall tear, the underlying collagen fibers are suddenly exposed, and they chemically react with the platelets, turning them all sticky and glue-like at the scene of the injury. But that platelet plug still isn't as strong as it could be. It needs reinforcement to complete the clotting process. This reinforcement comes in the form of fibrin threads, protein strands that join together to make a sort of mesh that traps the platelets and blood cells. Eventually, the threads actually pull the opposite sides of the wound together to close the vessel wall so the endothelial cells can be replaced. Over a few days, the blood vessel heals and the blood clot dissolves, or at least that's how it's supposed to happen. People who suffer from disorders related to hemostasis may have trouble with unwanted clotting or the inability to form clots. In the family of disorders known as hemophilia, a patient can usually complete the first two steps of hemostasis just fine, but they can't make an effective fibrin clot. So it's not that they bleed more than anyone else, it's just that they bleed longer, which I guess means that they bleed more. As a result, they may need frequent blood transfusions throughout their lifetime. Which brings me right back around to that Saturday morning blood drive. Another thing you're gonna need to know before you give blood is what type you have. Do you have A, B, AB, or O? These different types all do the job equally well, they just sort of have a different flavor related to your immune system. All the cells in your body have a plasma membrane with specialized glycoprotein markers on them that act like name tags or labels, sort of like, this cell is property of Hank. These markers are your antigens, and your body's immune system is totally fine with your particular antigens, but if it detects antigens from someone else's cells, including viruses or bacteria, then it'll send out antibodies to bind to those markers, often to tag them for destruction by the immune system. Your red blood cells have specialized antigens on them called agglutinogens that activate antibodies that work by binding invading cells to each other, which causes coagulation, or the clumping of blood. Which agglutinogens you have on your erythrocytes defines your blood type, but they're classified in two different ways. In the most important blood classification, the kind people are most familiar with, there are only two kinds of agglutinogens, simply A and B, and your blood can either have one, or both, or neither of these molecules. So the name of your blood type refers to what kind of agglutinogens you have or don't have. A type has A antigens, B type has B, AB has both, and O has neither. So why do you need to know what type you are before you give or receive blood? Well, like I mentioned, if you have either of these antigens, your body will be fine with it because it doesn't produce any antibodies that label it for attack. So if you don't have a particular antigen on your blood cells, say the type B, then you do have antibodies that are going to label those B antigens for attack should they enter your space. So AB type folks are called universal recipients because they have both antigens and therefore no antibodies for either. So they can accept A or B or AB or O blood. Meanwhile, O type doesn't have A or B antigens, so those folks have antibodies for both. That means that they can only accept other O blood. And yet that lack of antigens means that type O blood can mix with other types of blood without getting attacked, which is why it's known as the universal donor. But just to complicate things a little bit more, you've got a whole other set of antigens with totally different protocol. These are your rhesus, or Rh antigens, named after the species of monkey they were first identified in. Much like A and B, you either have the Rh antigens, in which case you're Rh positive, or you don't and are Rh negative. Most of the population is Rh positive, so they don't have the anti-Rh antibodies, which means they can accept either positive or negative blood, but negative types should stick to just the Rh negative blood. And since the presence of AB antigens is controlled by different genes than the Rh ones, we end up with 8 different blood types, 4 separate groups, each with 2 variations. And now, hopefully, you understand why it's so hard to replace blood, and why True Blood is not true. I've not actually ever seen that show. Along the way,
Wasn't that an interesting video about the human body? So now we're going to take what we learned from the video and our lessons from the past few days, and we're going to kind of put it all together. So what you're going to do is you have a human body, and you are now going to glue the organs and the bone to the human. So let's go ahead and start with the bone. So what do bones do?
They hold your body in place.
Perfect, awesome job. So let's go ahead and cut out the bone and glue it down. So I see that you're gluing it to the arm. What a good place for a bone. We have bones and arms, and you're gluing it to the leg. Another great place for bones. So the next organ, let's see. Kaylee, what organ do you want to cut out next?
I will cut out the brain.
The brain, okay. Kathy, what does the brain do?
It makes you be able to think and to do things.
Awesome. Go ahead and let's cut out the brain. Awesome job. So now let's go ahead and let's do the kidneys and the bladder. Okay, so these organs, what are these organs, Kendra?
They take blood and filter it. Isn't that right?
Yes, that is right. So these organs work together in helping cleanse the body. Awesome job. So Kendra, what organ do you want to cut out next?
I want to cut out the face.
The face. So what does the face have in it, Kaylee?
It has all the sensory organs.
Very good. So we have our eyes, our taste, our ears. Very good. So let's go ahead and cut out the face. And the face also has skin on it, which is another organ in the body. Awesome job. So now, Kaylee, what organ do you want to cut out next?
I will cut out the stomach.
That's the large intestine.
Large intestine, my apologies.
Okay, cut out the large intestine. Oh my God.
Oh, I know what the large intestines do.
What does it do?
It helps to digest your food.
Awesome job. You can overlap. Awesome job gluing them large intestines. Okay. So what other organs are left?
The heart and the lungs.
Awesome. So which one do you want to cut out?
We'll cut out the heart.
Go ahead. Let's cut out the heart. You guys are doing a great job of putting the organs where they go. So B, Miss Kendra, what other organs do you want to put?
I see the liver actually.
Oh, let's do the liver. That's a good organ. Another good filtration organ. And did you know that the liver, if it's damaged, it can actually regrow itself?
Oh wow, very interesting.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
So what is the last organ we have not glued?
The lungs.
Awesome, so let's go ahead and glue the lungs down. Now what do the lungs do? Kendra.
They breathe in, they help you to breathe in air, and then they help get it to your blood.
Very good. So awesome job of gluing down your organs. So now the last and final thing we're going to do, kind of an exit ticket, a quiz, a summary, is we're going to go ahead and you are going to take these questions and you're going to go ahead and label 3 of the human organs. So the first one, it says, this organ tells the entire body what to do. So go ahead and glue that where you think it goes.
Ah.